Now. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Sedgemoor's Executive on the 16th of December. It's Wednesday and it's not a particularly nice day. Over to you, Andrew.
Thank you very much, Leader, and welcome members and officers to the Executive on the 16th of December. Just to say, we have had a few connection problems this morning and the system has been a bit slow. So if we do run into any problems, probably the best thing is just to switch your camera off until you need to use it, and that will help open up the bandwidth. If there is a more serious technical failure, we will pause the meeting and establish connection with everyone. Just to let everybody know that the meeting today is being recorded, and recording of the meeting will be put up onto the Council's YouTube channel within the next 2 to 3 days. And the format of the meeting today will be as per the agenda published and circulated. Thank you very much, and hand over to the Leader of Council.
Thank you. And if I just go round the table, the virtual table, and just check everyone can see and hear at this moment in time, please. And I'll start with myself. I'm able to hear and see at the moment, which is good news. Councillor Slogan.
Thank you, Leader. I am the portfolio holder for Inward Investment and Growth and Deputy Leader, and I can see and hear everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Caswell.
Good morning, all. Councillor Mike Caswell, portfolio holder for Infrastructure and Transport. I can clearly hear and see everything.
Thank you. Councillor Duddridge.
Yeah, good morning, all. Councillor Lance Duddridge, portfolio holder for Customer Access and Digital Delivery, and I can see and hear everything perfectly.
Thank you. Councillor Gilling.
Good morning, all. Yes, I can confirm that I can hear and see everything. I'm the portfolio holder for housing.
Thank you. And Councillor Keane.
Good morning, everybody. Councillor Janet Keane, portfolio holder for Communities and Wellbeing. I confirm that I can see and hear everybody.
Thank you. And I'll now go round SLT officers who are here today, and perhaps they can introduce themselves and also anyone that they've got supporting them today from the rest of the organisation. Mr. Bamsey.
Good morning, Doug Bamsey, Strategic Director. I can confirm I can hear and see everything.
Thank you. Mr. Brown.
Good morning, everyone. Bob Brown, Strategic Director. I can confirm that I can see and hear everything.
Thank you. Mrs. Turner.
Good morning, everybody. Alison Turner, Assistant Director, Finance and Property, and I can confirm I can see and hear everything.
Right. Mr. Hellard.
Thank you, Leader. Good morning, all. Yep, Steve Hellard, Deputy Monitoring Officer. I can confirm that I can see and hear everybody.
Thank you. Mr. Weldon.
Good morning, all. Yes, I can see and hear everything. Alan Weldon, Licensing and Fraud Manager, here for Adrian Gardner, Assistant Director. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lane.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Ben Lane, Director of Finance and Performance at Homes and Sedgemoor. I can hear and see everything.
Thank you. Mr. Tandy. Mute Mr. Tandy.
Apologies, I must have not been on mute and then put myself on mute. Simon Tandy, Corporate Performance Manager, and I can see in.
And almost here. Yeah, good. Right. Thank you. And we've got Dawn Lehman with us.
Thank you, Leader. Dawn Lehman, Legal Services. I can confirm that I can see and hear you. I'm here to observe. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Taylor.
Good morning, Steve Taylor, Democratic Services. I can confirm I can see and hear you. Thank you.
We're joined by, excuse me, two leaders of the opposition, Councillor Smedley and Councillor Revens. Welcome. Thank you. And the last, but by no means least, Mr. Mel Hewish.
Thank you very much, Leader. Andrew Melhuish, Democratic Services. I can see and hear everything loud and clear this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. We'll then start I think that's it. We'll start the agenda proper. Any apologies?
Yes, Leader. Apologies today received from Councillor Mark Healy. No other apologies to report.
Thank you. Any declarations of interest, members? No. Good. Moving on then. Urgent business. Do we have any urgent business? I have none before me.
There is no urgent business this morning, Leader.
Right, we have no public speakers. So without further ado, we'll go straight into agenda item 5, corporate dashboard. Councillor Duddridge.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Thank you. What I usually say at these performance executives, I'm very happy to present a very positive report again this quarter. As members can see, all high-level actions, audit actions, operational actions, and the performance indicators are within green after what has been another very challenging, excuse me, quarter. If anything, the figures could be slightly better again, but there's a few operational actions that have been subject to change request since this report went to print, but that obviously filter through into the next quarter. One thing to flag up, we did mention at the last meeting that there was some concern about the figures around indicators SSP1 and SSP2, which deal with planning registrations. After a lot of hard work by Mr. Howlett and Councillor Slogan as a portfolio holder, these percentages have gone up quite drastically. But taking a slightly longer view, they have been under target for 4 quarters. Mr. Tandy and I thought it'd be useful if we could perhaps have monthly information from Mr. Howlett's department, so we can just track the figures and make sure they keep improving. I think Mr. Howlett's joining us somewhere along the line. Apart from that, I'm going to hand over to Mr. Tandy in a second, but I would ask all portfolio holders to check on their operational actions that come due on the 31st of March next year. There's quite a lot outstanding, and with the year we've had, it might be worth getting officers to look through their actions and see if a slight extension is needed on some of them and put in a change request. And if we could do that sort of sooner rather than later, that'd put us in good stead for next year. But apart from that, I'll hand over to Mr. Tandy for the detail, but very happy to take any questions afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tandy.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Councillor Duddridge. Yes, so the overall report is very positive. We're still on target for all of our actions, high level, operational and audit recommendations. As Councillor Duddridge has said, I intend to speak to each of the assistant directors just to do a health check on their sets of operational actions, because a high proportion are due on the 31st of March. It's not uncommon for that to happen, because as they are annual operational actions, a lot of the targets do tend to be set for the end of the financial year. But I think there are slightly more than usual this year due to the fact that we didn't create the set until slightly later in the year than usual, for obvious reasons. With everyone starting to work from home in March, things got put back, and we didn't actually raise the set until June, which should have been a couple of months earlier in normal circumstances. But therefore, that's pushed a lot of the actions back to the 31st of March. And I do think that they're with the second wave of COVID-19, I think that's obviously occurred since the sets were created, and there may well be that were perhaps can't. But without going into those with the individual assistant directors, I can't be certain. So as I say, that's the reason for this health check. With regards to the performance indicators, a second quarter in a row, we're on target. We hit 86% in quarter 1, 84% on target in quarter 2. So there's a slight dip. As Councillor Duddridge mentioned, the indicators that are significantly off target, 2 of them fall in planning registration, and I was under the impression that Stuart Howlett would have been here this morning. I can't see him on the list.
No, he's not here at the moment. No.
We may have to field offline. Unless I don't know, Councillor Slocum, if you've perhaps got anything to say on those.
Yes, I have. Yes, I have. As
Lovely.
if you want me to, when you want me to, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we'll come back to that shortly. Thank you. So overall, there are 5.
It's unfortunate that the report author is having difficulty with connections at the moment. But go on, Simon, and we'll try and keep up with you. Yeah.
Am I sounding like a robot?
On and off, you're dipping in and out, but I think we're getting the message at the moment.
Leader, I wonder whether if Simon turns his camera off, that might help.
Yeah,
Okay, I'll try that,
Simon. Yeah.
Okay, how am I sounding now?
Okay.
There are also 4 performance indicators which are amber, which means that they are off target but not significantly off target. With those, I'm obviously happy to take any questions. They're listed in the report, so if any members have any questions on those, we should have officers here to field those questions. Question from Councillor Keane.
Well, we'll if there's anything else you wish to say, Simon, we'll hear that, and then we'll take Councillor Slocum first, and then Councillor Keane afterwards.
Lovely. Okay. Just on a final note, in paragraph 3.7 of the covering report of the dashboard, I've mentioned about the fact that 3 of the performance indicators for this year have actually been suspended, and that's due to the fact that they were created for the refreshed set beginning in April this year, and obviously were created in advance of that, prior to the COVID-19 situation occurring. They fall within the Housing Advice Service, and due to the circumstances of there have been significant changes in the way the service is provided. So actually, it was seen that those indicators were no longer providing the information that that they were intended to, and in light of that, a new set of 4 indicators have been proposed, and those will be monitored over the next couple of quarters and will begin reporting in April next year. So happy to take any questions around the dashboard.
Okay, Councillor Slocum.
Thank you, Leader. Forgive me if I get this, I might do this in the wrong order, but I'm going to pick out all the areas of concern in red. Is that okay? You happy with that? So on the high level, I'm going to pick out first of all the first one, which is IIG 37, the HPC Priorities Plan Update. That's on page 11. That is just to tell you that is a there was a change request received on that. We are looking at that to see whether the priorities plan update is actually required, whether in actual fact Charlotte is not with us anymore. So we're actually looking at to see whether the quality of that would be is needed, and there'll be something else. So that's going to be reviewed. Okay. The next one. Sorry, I'm just going through just to make sure. Oh, on the IIG 21. This is the 5-year housing supply report. This has actually been finalised. This has actually been done, and this was finalised on the 30th of November. Unfortunately, this report has come through just slightly earlier. Then I've got so on the SSP1, there's been a lot of changes with the staffing, and that's been all been done. So there's going to be a possible review of all this, and we'll get all of this sorted out. We're still doing well in our terms, but there has been some major changes. So so we do feel that the monthly information probably would be very much more helpful. But the technical sides of staffing, where we've done inward changes, So it's meant that I don't think we'll see the improvement possibly visibly until next year. On the SSP2, there's a large increase. It's the same team issues, exactly the same thing. They're meeting the statutory targets on all things, both of them on performing well. So we are meeting those targets, but obviously, as again, it's been staff, and it's also been illness. There's been illness within the team, so they've had to sort of double up and do the best they can. On the SSP5, the landscaping officer, that again has been health issues, but we're hoping that that is going to be actually for the new year will come very good. And we are doing more recruitment for January. We're actually going to do recruitment now, so that will actually balance this out. But on the whole, our figures, we believe, are looking for what the amount, because they've had a lot of more increase. So actually, we feel we're doing very well. But I think Mr. Howlett may want to come in and just give the finite detail.
Thank you. Yeah, Mr. Howlett, if you're welcome to step into the breach at this point. Thank you, and welcome.
Thank you, and apologies for being a little bit late to the meeting. In terms of the performance figures, yes, I mean, in terms of the registration, the two registrations one, so SSP1, SSP2, they are actually up on the last quarter to where they were on the previous quarter, but we do still have some challenges in those areas. Working remotely and the way we're working at the moment is not ideal, particularly with large plotting and things like that. And also the positive news is that the actual number of planning applications has stayed very strong, indeed above expectations over this whole period. So that has added to some pressures. I am looking at two things. One, I'm looking at where we can reshape some of the staffing to help be a bit more efficient in getting applications registered, but also looking at the processes as well, because we are burdened by complex processes at times, and looking to streamline and make things more efficient, I think will have quite a significant effect on those figures going forward. So we're looking at, again, support from the CAP team as well to help look at some of that process design work as well. So I'm hoping that we will see the improvement of the last quarter continue onwards. I think in terms of the tree applications, I think that probably needs a bit more explanation in terms of the blip, and it is only a blip. It's one quarter, probably the first quarter in about 15 years where we've not hit our targets, and that's simply due to personal circumstances and health issues of the landscape officer. The one thing I will say is it really brings to home that we do need to look at succession planning and put things in place to make sure we're more resilient in our areas of specialism, where we have one officer who tends to deal with this and one very long-serving and experienced officer. We definitely need to look forward in terms of succession planning to make sure that we don't get these blips. Happy to take any questions, of course.
Thank you. I think it's important, and I like the suggestion of monthly monitoring reports where necessary. I think that will be helpful to everybody concerned. I'll just go to Councillor Keane.
Thank you, Leader. My question starts with 3.3. It's the high risk audit recommendations. Amongst the very specific titles mentioned within that paragraph, there's no mention of the overdue council tax and the unrecoverable amounts of council tax. And that does affect, and in paragraph 10, when it says the well-being implications because of the effect it has on individuals, I wonder if there is any information on actions there. It is one of the most prominent items in the citizens' advice queries, because they're researchers to say this is one of the biggest issues. Thank you.
I don't know if there's anyone who might be able to shed a bit of light on that, Simon, or Councillor Duddridge.
The last audit that was done on council tax was in January. So as far as actual audit actions, they were pre-situation. So unless there's going to be a follow-up during during these times. I don't know what else to add to that really.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry.
No, I would say, I mean, it's an area that's of concern to all of us. I think the council tax team are working particularly hard at the moment in very difficult circumstances, and I think, given the situation that we find ourselves in, I think they've made significant inroads into any processing times or backlog, and I'm certainly I'm expecting to see higher performance figures as we come through the year and certainly into Q3. Ms. Councillor Dudridge, anything you would wish to say on this? Mute.
Apologies. Yeah, as far as the council tax is concerned, we can certainly monitor that going forward and make sure it does keep improving. But I just wanted to thank Mr. Howlett and Councillor Slogan for all the work they've done, especially around SSP 1 and 2, because I know that has been an issue in that department. But as I said, certainly if we can have the monthly figures, perhaps, as time goes along, we can look at them and perhaps, if there's extra help needed, extra resources or whatever, we can have a look at that. But like I said, many thanks to them for the work they've done on that.
Thank you. And Mrs. Turner.
I just wanted to make a general comment really about the council tax collection, not specifically the audit recommendation, but clearly this year has been a really difficult year, well, for everybody. But we have, in terms of council tax collection, we have done quite a lot of what we call soft reminder letters. But with the courts not operational at the moment, then we've got to a certain point. But collection rates, we've been very proactive, and we've also worked with customers to make arrangements as much as we can. So we have been very proactive with that. So, I mean, in terms of the audit recommendation, we will be audited again. Well, I guess this quarter, because we have an annual audit in terms of all of our financial systems. But just generally in terms of council tax collection, we have been quite proactive in the circumstances we're operating in, and we continue to make sure that we, set up payment terms with customers to be as helpful as we can in these difficult times, but also making sure as much as we can we collect the income in.
Thank you. Councillor Slocum.
Thank you, Leader. I just wanted to thank Councillor Dudridge. I think, like all departments in this council, we've done a tremendous job. I think planning has been working under extreme difficulties. We've had staffing leave, we've had illnesses, as a lot of other areas have as well. But I would like to personally thank the team for the work they've done. And I think that we will, obviously, in planning, as everything, we hope to make significant improvements for next year. So I would actually say that I think you're absolutely right, Leader. I think under these difficult circumstances, I think we've done a tremendous job. Thank you.
Thank you, and just been reminded that this morning there was a press release, I think, that the corporate relations managers put out for extended help to those members of our communities who are struggling at the moment with council tax payments. So hopefully that will help. Mrs. Turner, you've still got your hand up. Is that a legacy hand? I do like that word. Or it is. Okay, thank you very much.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. And you'll see in the side there, Mr. Bamsley's just put the text from the release so that we all know it. Right. Anyone else? Any member of council? Any member of the executive who wishes to ask a question or make comment? No? Are you therefore happy that the two recommendations with the additional monitoring, as mentioned previously in the report, goes forward? Councillor Slocum?
Yes, I'd like to second the recommendations, Leader.
Thank you. Mr. Melhuish, how are we going to do this today?
I think if we just ask if there's any members who are against or wish to abstain. If not, we'll take it as being unanimous.
In that case, are there any members who wish to abstain or vote against the recommendations? Please signify now. No, in that case, then, in conclusion, I'd just thank Mr. Tandy for what must have been quite a difficult collation of information at this time, as I'm sure we'll say again in a moment. And overall, I think our performance, certainly on the day-to-day stuff, has been spectacular given the circumstances upon which we're operating. So thank you to the whole council. I know it's probably seen as a bit of a chore at the moment because there's so many other little jobs to be doing, but it's greatly appreciated, and thank you. It just goes further to describe what an effective council Sedgemoor is. So in that case, I'll go to Mr. Mel Hewish for the report on the vote.
Thank you very much. And as no members have indicated that they're against or wishing to abstain, the 3 recommendations are unanimously carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And therefore we'll move on to agenda item 6, corporate performance monitoring quarter 2, and over to Mr. Duddridge again, I think.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, as members can see, the bulk of this report really is the financial reports that Mrs. Turner probably speak on, and the Homes in Sedgemoor performance that Mr. Lane's going to talk to us about. But the only thing we've just been talking about planning, the flip side of what we've been talking about is the fact that we're yet again #1 in the country for major applications, and that's been the same for many quarters now. So that's a great credit to Mr. Howlett's department and the councillor Slogan. The only thing I'd flag up that caught my eye on the risk register, there's something around CCTV, but I think I'm right in saying there's a new contract for support maintenance on CCTV that's going to council next week, and I think if council agrees to that, it could be implemented sort of February, March next year. But that's the only thing that caught my eye. Like I said, very happy to take any questions, but hand over to members now.
Yeah, thank you. I would say that on the CCTV, our current supplier was no longer in a position to continue the contract, and we've had to go out to tender for a new contract. And hopefully next week, members will be able to agree a new contractor, and that, as Councillor Duddridge says, things will move along fairly swiftly after that, and the renewal and maintenance will continue apace. Right. Are there any officers who wishes to say anything at this point? Mrs. Turner.
No, I don't wish to comment on the figures particularly. If members have got any questions, then I'm happy to try and answer any questions you have. There's nothing significant to pick up from the figures reported.
Okay, thank you. Then Mr. Tandy.
Thank you, Leader. Can you hear me okay this time?
Yep, we're doing okay with you. Yeah,
lovely. Just to mention that in future quarters, we are going to be adding in a miniature procurement plan update. See on page 12, we normally just mention about whether there's any changes in the utility companies. From quarter 3 onwards, the procurement officer is going to provide me with some further detail on what procurements have been completed and what's coming up. So that is a small addition to performance monitoring. With regards to risks, there's been a very slight change to the way they're displayed there. We've actually started grouping them into categories now. So there are 5 categories: operational and service delivery, compliance, reputation, and development and regeneration. So hopefully that makes the strategic risk register easier to read. And finally, just to reiterate the planning performance, obviously the real key thing is the fact that we are one of the top performing authorities in the country when it comes to actual planning applications, and it's been over 4 years now that we've been ranked joint first for delivering on major applications. So real credit should go to the service. And then I'm obviously happy to field any questions on the report before we hand over to Mr. Lane to let us know how Holmes and Sedgemoor are getting along.
Right, thank you. Members of council, any comments or questions? I will say, whilst anyone thinks of a question, that procurement is clearly an area of concern moving forward with Brexit and whatever, and the new procurement rules that will be in place. Clearly, there may be a slight hiccup, but I'm sure Joe Hutchings has got that under control and has planned ahead for it. Councillor Slocum.
Thank you, Leader. It's not so much a question, really. I think it's a clarification, and I thank Mr. Tandy for how well he reports all this. It's an amazing job he does, and I really do appreciate it for getting us a better understanding. From my area, I'm going to obviously speak about page 20. I think that does put it in perspective about the planning performance. Major applications in 13 weeks, minors in 8, others in 8. And I think if you look at those target things and how we're doing there, that actually puts the whole system into I think we understandable sort of figures for us, really a better understanding. So I again applaud our planning team, who don't always get the recognition, but I also I thank our finance team as well with the work they do, and the whole council. But I wanted to flag up that because they obviously get very worried when they see themselves in red, and they don't want to be in red. It's a big worry to them, but I want to personally congratulate them all for the tremendous job they've done. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gilling. You're on mute.
Is that better?
That's much better. Thank you.
Excellent. You can now hear me. Unfortunately, you can hear me. I wanted to echo the comments made by others about Mr. Tandy's work and also Councillor Duddridge's. I believe that the planning department has worked above and beyond its gone the extra mile in many respects. And from a housing perspective, I want to add my own particular congratulations to their efforts. I think they've done a sterling work throughout the last difficult times. But that's all I wanted to say, was just an underlining element of their work and to recognise it.
Right, thank you. Thank you. So again, if anyone wishes to make any comment before we move on, I will say a sobering thing happened to me earlier this week when I had the joy of going to a council north of us, significantly north of us, above Bristol, to hear their full council meeting where performance figures were being discussed. And it was noticeable that all apart from, they had 97 performance indicators, all apart from 7 were in red, and they were seemingly quite happy with that, given the COVID situation. But it was a bit of an eye-opener for me to listen to that debate. Councillor Slocum.
My apologies, Leader. I just wanted to thank also Councillor Duddridge, who works closely with Mr. Tandy with these figures and does give you a little G up sometimes when he feels something's not looking good, and that immense sort of working collaboration together is very, very helpful to us as members, I think, as well, to make sure that we behave and perform and make sure we get our figures straight as well. So I want to personally thank him very much. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Councillor Duddridge.
Well, at the risk of this turning into a sort of mutual admiration society, I'd like to thank Councillor Slocum for her thing, but also following on from what the leader said, in some ways we're victims of our own success. When something does go into the red, it stands out a mile. If we were in the situation that you've just described, where everything is in the red, basically, you know, in some ways it wouldn't be an issue. But when all I would say is no reflection on any member of staff or any department. When something does flag up, we tend to notice it more because usually our performance is so high.
It was interesting that I'd previously done a peer review at this council, and they'd taken advice on what performance management system that they should have, and they eventually decided that Pentana was the one that they'd go for, and it was it was a contrast to looking at our report. I see a hand there, but I'm not sure whose hand it is.
It's mine, possibly, leader.
Oh, sorry, I haven't got
That's
the.
all right.
Yeah.
I was going to say, leader, I think what you've highlighted is so important to recognise that what Simon's figures reflect is the enormous effort of staff across the organisation to deliver performance in a very challenging situation. And I think all of us have come across other organisations that seem to forgot about everything else and just dealt with COVID. Which is perhaps understandable, but of course, if we were to do that, we would impact so very much on the very community we're trying to help through this process. So I think that's a very thing. So I think, it's enormous testimony to our strength and character and our ability as a council as a whole, members and officers, to deliver in very challenging circumstances. So it's quite remarkable, and it's very timely. You should remind us that other organisations have not exactly managed to do that, and we know that by some of our interactions we have with other organisations where they clearly have not been able to maintain general performance. So that is a huge testimony to our staff as a whole, ably reflected, of course, in what Simon and Councillor Dudridge were able to report today.
Thank you. Right. Let's not get too complacent. As you say, it could be our victims
No,
of
exactly.
our own downhill. But no, we're doing a reasonable job, and thank you. And on that note, then, I notice we've been joined by Peter Hatch as well. Welcome, Ben. Do you want to come in and just run through where we are with homes in Sedgemoor, please?
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Good morning, councillors. Good morning, everybody. I've sort of switched the video on. If it sort of proves troublesome, I will sort of switch it off. As you've also noted, joined today by our CEO Peter Hatch as well. To hopefully, if there's any questions that anybody should have between myself and Peter, hopefully we'll be able to address those. I think just by way of a sort of summary introduction, really, into the sort of performance data that you have in front of you. We're looking at Q2 performance up to the end of September. You would have picked up that the KPI suite that we have is very much aligned to our new corporate strategy. So it's a good mechanism for us to be able to sort of measure how we're performing against the delivery of that kind of corporate strategy. Again, councillors will be aware that we have been working with our SDC colleagues through a governance review. The conclusion of that work has resulted in agreements about the composition of our board going forward, and we've now moved on to the next phase of that review to include discussions around the KPIs that will be included within our management agreement for 21-22 onwards. Those discussions that are currently underway will also pick up the requirements that fall from the recently produced white paper to ensure that any performance indicators that need to be factored in are captured. It's again worth pointing out that the information again that's in front of you in the detailed schedule highlights those management agreement KPIs that are in existence. They're highlighted in blue, so hopefully councillors can see the KPIs that are specifically contained within the management agreement we have between ourselves and the council. The intention is for Q3 that we'll have a separate schedule exclusively looking at the management agreement KPIs, so hopefully it's a lot easier than picking through the detail that you have in front of you. I think, by way of kind of a summary overview of sort of performance, I mean, we have had, clearly an impact. COVID-19 has had a clear impact on some of our areas of operation, quite acutely so during Q1, less so now in Q2, but the cumulative effect of some of those challenges are still present within our performance. So we see sort of performance impacts on things like our relet times for properties. We see performance impacts on void loss, also spend on capital in terms of our capital program. And I think all of which can be sort of pinpointed back to the implications of COVID-19 and the restrictions that exist as a result. I think we fare quite well when compared to the sort of sector. We have, as you would have picked up, I think there's an additional appendix included from an organisation called Housemark. We participate in and have done so since March time in monthly returns where we submit information regarding our performance, and what that's provided us is in return a sort of summary that comes back out from Housemark to see how the sector is also faring in some areas of performance. And as much as some of our performance has fallen from where it would have been during 1920, we still sit favourably against the performance across many areas when compared to the sector as a whole. We have made a sort of decision to deploy additional resources into areas where performance has been below target. Appointing short-term sort of staffing resources into neighbourhoods, into lettings, for example. We hope that the result of that will improve performance as we start to report it for Q3 and then finally for Q4. You may well have picked up in reviewing the performance that we've seen a decline in our customer satisfaction in Q2. These are quarterly surveys that are conducted when compared to Q1. Again, it seems like that experience has been felt across the sector. It's difficult to know if that's sort of COVID-19 fatigue amongst the tenant customer group. We continue, as we always do, with customer feedback to look at the underlying themes that exist within it and to address any sort of issues that we can to hopefully improve performance. But it feels like it's a sort of experience, that's been felt across the sector. Without going into any of the specifics of the performance data, I was going to leave the introduction at that. I'll take any questions, and hopefully between myself and Peter will be able to cover off any questions you might have.
Thank you. And I'll just invite Peter. I just wondered if there's anything you wanted to say at all at this point.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you for the invite this morning. I think probably just one thing I'd like to add to Ben is just the work on compliance and safety in the homes. So when I last came before you, which seems a long time ago in person, we did have some challenges regarding fire safety and a range of other areas. I think after a lot of hard work this year, despite coronavirus and also some very close working with our SDC colleagues as well, we have turned the corner on all of that work, and we are now in a far better position as we enter the new year. So I think there's just a positive, hopefully, reassurance for you that we have turned that corner and our figures now are as we would expect to be. No room for complacency in safety. Still things to do. We won't sit on our laurels, but there's plenty of success that we've had, and there's work still to be done, but we've certainly turned the corner.
Thank you. And I'll just bring in, I will say, what a refreshing change it is to hear the words working closely with SDC when being presented with a report from Homes in Sedgemoor. Well, like a breath of fresh air. Thank you for that. I'll just go to Bob Brown.
Thank you, Leader. It was on a similar theme that I wanted to raise that issue around compliance, because obviously Homes in Sedgemoor are doing the day-to-day stuff, have been dealing with a backlog of issues, and we've been working with the regulator quite closely as well. But it's very pleasing this week to have received notification from the regulator to say that they were very pleased with the timely manner that we were dealing with outstanding issues, and these are direct quotes from the regulator's letter, and that we have good oversight and monitoring of these issues, which is, I think, a massive improvement, a testament to the work that Peter and Ben and their teams have been doing, and the work with Dave and the others. So, like I say, I think on behalf of Sedgemoor, thank you for all that collaborative work, which I think is paying off, and the regulators seeing that and complimenting us for the activity that we've undertaken. So I think that's worth sharing.
Yeah, thank you. Good. Councillor Slocum.
Thank you, Leader. I just wanted to say, I wanted to ask about the KPIs on 2.2 operational. Your responsive repairs are 92.6, but I have to say, I think that's pretty good, because in this difficult period, when probably getting into people's houses to do anything under COVID has probably been dreadful, and I can't imagine that's been an easy process for you. some of the, I saw the customer satisfaction, but but I was just thinking about you're responding to repairs. Obviously, some repairs need to be done immediately. I get that, but I just wondered if you could just because it's in red, but actually, I think to some degree it must have been a very difficult time, and I wondered if you could expand on that for me, please.
Yes, I'll take that. Thank you, Councillor Slocum. It has been difficult, particularly in the first lockdown when very little was allowed to happen. We had a backlog after that, as you could imagine. We've cleared the backlog, I think, really quickly. And most of our customers have been very appreciative of us coming, and we haven't had a great deal of refusals there. I think the target there is very high anyway. We have a same-day service as well. We've tweaked that in response to the last few months, because some of the repairs that we said are a same day, we were actually going out and saying we can't do those. We can only inspect it today and then raise a job. So we've changed that now, and the jobs that we say same day are very clear, and we can do those on the day. So we've changed the service slightly in the last few months too. And I think we've spoken to our SDC colleagues this week about that target and whether actually that's reflective of, you know, where we want to be going forward too. So I think a bit of work to be done there, but all in all, the service has held up and the satisfaction, I think, has been pretty good considering.
Maybe if I may, Leader, perhaps we could just give a vote of thanks to the frontline staff that are out there doing this work, because it's not been easy. I know I've had things go wrong and it's been very difficult. So I just want to thank the staff, because those figures may not be the 98, but they're very good.
Yeah, thank you for that, Kat. And I will certainly pass that on. I think a thank you to our contractor. So our contractor is MD that provides this service. And we've worked very hard with them this year, and the relationship hasn't always been perfect previous to this year, but they really have served us exceptionally well during this period. And we thank them, but that's really appreciated. I will pass that on too. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members, or members of council or members of the executive wish to say anything? I noticed Mr. Brown has still got his hand up. It must be aching now.
Legacy, sorry.
Thank you. Anyone else? No. In that case, then we'll head back to the agenda. Will you be happy that I put the recommendations before you at this time?
Second the recommendation, Leader.
Thank you. And again, are there any abstentions, or does anyone intend to vote against? Then please show. No. Then in that case, if no one else wishes to say anything, Mr. Melhuish.
Yes, thank you very much, Leader. As there were no votes against and no abstentions, the recommendations are unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'd say thank you to everybody for their attendance. It's not been the easiest of meetings today. Clearly, we've all had an element of connection problems, but thank you to Simon and to Lance and to all the officers who attended today and probably thinking to themselves, oh, why did I come? Nobody asked me a question. But it is much appreciated that you're there and also take an interest in the performance of the council. So without further ado, there being no further business, I declare the meeting closed and thank you for your attendance today. Thank you.